What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another DC Dual Force video. Today, we're going to be taking a look at 4 decks for you to try out during the upcoming beta this weekend. I was lucky enough to get into the streamer beta last weekend, so we had the beta for 3 days, about 5 hours each. So I got about 15 hours of total gameplay, give or take. So I do have a little bit of experience with the game, and I put together these decks for you guys to try out. Now, before we get into the deck list, I just want to say a couple of things here. One, since this is just a beta, some cards are probably going to be overtuned. Some cards might get changed. I'm almost certain some cards are getting changed. Some leaders probably going to get changed. So some leaders are just straight up broken. Spoiler, Batman is probably the best leader in the game. I think most creators who played in the beta last weekend would agree with that. But basically what I'm trying to say here is that these are just very, very early deck builds. These are not optimized deck builds, you know what I mean? Like, we just only got our hands on the game for about a total of 15 hours, and it was only streamers that were playing it, right? So there's still a lot to experience with these cards and deck list. This is actually one of the things I really like about DC Dual Force, since there are 40 cards in a deck and 2 leaders, and you can have 2 factions or 1 faction if you want within a deck. There is a lot of room for complex deck building within this game. So these are just very, early deck lists, not completely optimized or anything like that. But with that being said, I do think that this is a good starting point for you to hop onto. And one other thing real quick is that I don't have any Tyranny decks in this video. I apologize for you guys. Tyranny is the purple faction that has Lex Luthor, Black Adam, and Poison Ivy. But unfortunately, I think overall that faction is just the weakest. So if you're looking to win games, I probably would not recommend playing that faction. But if you're looking to have fun and maybe you just want to mess around with those leaders, Lex Luthor, Ivy, and Black Adam, go for it. But me personally, I did not play with that faction a lot. In my opinion, that is the weakest faction in the game, and I have the least experience with that faction. So that's why I did not bring any Tyranny decks for you guys. So apologize for that. But with all that out of the way, let's get into these decks here. All right, so first off, we have what I believe is probably the strongest deck in the game. Not necessarily all these cards exactly, but some sort of shell of Batman and Wonder Woman. As I said before, I think Batman is the best leader in the game, and the reason for that is because his leader ability reads 2 charges. Batman gets +3 attack this turn. Seek 1 of 2 gadgets. What does seek mean? Seek basically means you create a card and you get to pick 1 or 2 of those gadgets. Now, what are the gadgets exactly? Well, there are 4 different Batman gadgets that you can choose from, and they are all free cards, which means you do not have to pay a resource to play these cards, which is why Batman is so valuable, because basically every 2 turns you get a free card, and he gets 3 attack on top of that. So Batman is just absolutely cracked. So the gadgets are Bandage, deal 3 damage from a friendly character; Battering, deal 2 damage to an enemy recruit; Grapnel Gun, return a friendly recruit to your hand; and Tear Gas, give an enemy recruit -2 attack. And these gadgets are just really good. Like, not only are they free, they don't cost any resources to play, but they're just good cards. Especially, I think Battering is the best gadget, dealing 2 damage to an enemy recruit. In this game, early game removal is very, very important, because there are cards that can just grow and grow out of hand. So you want to try and kill them before they can grow. And not only that, but there are cards that synergize with gadgets, because gadgets are actually a specific type of card in this deck list. So there are cards that synergize with gadgets. So Batman, a very, very strong leader, arguably the best one in the game. Next up, we have Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's ability reads 2 charges. Wonder Woman gets +4 attack this turn and give your recruits +1 health. So this is just an all-around, just good, solid ability. You're giving Wonder Woman attack, and you are also buffing your recruits by 1. Usually you can get a lot of recruits on the board with this deck list, and again, it's only 2 charges, which is really, really cheap. And she has 21 health on top of that, which 20 health or more is really really good. So let's get into the deck list here. I'm going to talk about the tactics faction first, which is the blue faction, and then we'll go into might, which is the red faction. So starting off here, this is the Dual Force GG website, by the way. So it's not the most intuitive website, but it's the only thing we have that we can use to build decks outside of the game itself, which I can't access the game right now because the beta is not live. So, shout out DC Dual Force for putting this together. It's not the best, but it works and it gets the job done. So, thank you guys for putting together this website. Anyways, let's start off with the Bat Cycle. The Bat Cycle is a silver card, and it is an action card. Charge a friendly leader and give them evade. Draw a card. So, and what does evade mean? Well, evade basically means the first time your card would be attacked, they do not take any damage. So this is a really good card because you're charging a leader, you're giving them evade, and you're drawing a card. So just an all-around good card to throw in the deck list. Next up, we have Alfred, which is a bronze. Deploy, create a bandage in your hand, then charge your Batman leader. So again, more of that gadget synergy as well as charging your Batman leader. As we're going to see here, cards that charge your leader's abilities are just really good cards. And we have Robin. Robin is a silver. He has the text evade, and after Robin attacks, charge your leaders. Again, just a really, really good card. Then we have Lucius Fox, which is actually an insane card here. Silver, deploy, your gadgets everywhere are upgraded. So what does that mean exactly? So first off, we went over the gadgets earlier, but there are actually upgraded gadgets within this game. So if we take a look at the upgraded gadgets, we have the upgraded bandage, which heals 3 damage from a friendly character and draws you a card. That's just nuts. A free card that heals 3 damage and draws a card. That's just insane. Then we have the upgraded battering, which deals 4 damage to an enemy recruit. Then we have the upgraded grapnel gun. Return a friendly recruit to your hand and give them evade. Then we have upgraded tear gas. Give 2 enemy recruits -2 attack. So Lucius Fox, a very, very strong card. And what does everywhere mean exactly? Well, that basically means in your hand, in your deck, and any gadgets you create are now going to be upgraded. So this card is just absolutely nuts. And on top of that, he is a unit, like a recruit that you put on the board. He's a 1/2 body. If this was just an action card, it would still be insanely strong. Then we have a couple of batterings in here. You can create them with your Batman leader or other cards, but I think battering is such a good card that, it's good enough to have 2 copies in your deck list. They have John Diggle, which is a bronze card. After you create your first action each turn, John Diggle gets +1/+1, and he starts off as a 2/3. So this is an engine, meaning he's going to get value over time. Every time you create an action card, he is going to get buffed. Well, the first action each turn. So basically, he can only get buffed once per turn, but a very, very good card in this deck list. Then we have Batwing. This is one of those cards I mentioned that is going to synergize with gadgets. After you play a gadget, Batwing gets +1/+1. Deploy, create a gadget in your hand. And then Bluebird, more gadget synergy. Bronze card, deploy, create a gadget in your hand. Wayne Tech Engineer, start, create a gadget in your hand. You kind of seeing the pattern here, right? Gadgets are very, very good cards. And then we have Commissioner Gordon, which is actually one of my favorite cards in the game. Commissioner Gordon is just nuts. So he's a silver card. He has the text evade. He has a 3/5 stat line, and his ability reads deploy, summon a squad car. And the squad car is a 3/3 body with the text speed on it. And speed basically means that you can attack the same turn that the card is played. So Gordon is basically 2 cards in 1. I mean, this card is cracked. I feel like this card has to get nerfed somehow. Creating a 3/3 body that has speed, then he himself has evade and a 3/5 stat line. This card is nuts. I would not be surprised if it gets nerfed in the full game. And then lastly, for the tactics faction, we have Harvey Bullock, which reads deploy, deal 1 damage to an enemy recruit, and he's a 2/3 bronze card. So just a good early game removal, just an early game card to put on the board, so not bad to have in your hand. Next, we move on to the Might faction, and the Might faction is really all about buffing your units and buffing your leaders, giving them more attack, giving them more defense, giving them shield, which will prevent damage the next time that they would take damage. So Might is just kind of like an overall good faction, and I would probably say Might as a whole, I think, is the strongest faction in the game. So let's look at these cards here. First off, we have Hurl into the Stratosphere, which is a gold action card. Put an enemy recruit into your opponent's deck. So this is just a good removal tool. Sometimes your opponent is going to have really tough recruits that you might not be able to KO them, to kill them. So this will just put them back into your opponent's deck, just kind of get rid of them temporarily. And when you put a card into your opponent's deck or their hand, they will also lose all the buffs they received, which is worth noting. Then we have Queen Hippolyta, which is a silver with the text Aura. And Aura means the next time this character would be affected by an enemy's ability or action, it isn't. So basically, if your opponent tries to kill it with something like a battering, basically it's not going to take damage that first time, but then after that, it will be available to take damage. And then it has the ability deploy, give your other recruits +1/+1, and a 4/4 stat line. Just an all-around good card. Aura is a good keyword and buffing up your other recruits. Then we have Hammer Throw, which is more removal. Deal damage to an enemy recruit equal to the attack of your highest attack recruit. So, for example, if your highest attack recruit has 5 attack, it's going to deal 5 damage. So just another good removal card. Then we have Super Strength, just a good buff card. It's bronze, and it says give a friendly recruit +3/+3. Then we have Dual Force, which is a gold card, and it reads charge your leaders twice. And again, since Batman and Wonder Woman really only need 2 charges to activate their ability, this is just a very, very powerful card. And then next up, we have Steve Trevor, which is a bronze card. He's a 2/3, which reads deploy, charge a friendly leader. This is pretty damn insane. So I did not talk about this earlier, but I want to mention it now, is turn order. So it's not like a Marvel Snap where you're kind of playing your turns simultaneously, right? It's like one person goes first, other person goes second, and you go back and forth until the game is over, right? So usually there is an advantage in these type of games going first. You're always going to be one step ahead in terms of resources, right? Like you're going to get a silver resource before your opponent does. You're going to get a gold resource before your opponent does, unless they have some kind of card to generate it. But you know what I mean. Who goes first in this game? They start off with 4 cards in their hand, and they do not charge their leaders. But if you go second in DC Dual Force, you start off with 4 cards in your hand, but you draw 1, so you technically have 5 cards in your hand, and both your leaders get 1 charge. So if you're going second, you can play Steve Trevor on turn 1 and literally activate one of your leaders on turn 1, which is it's just busted, honestly. Like activating a Batman turn 1 or Wonder Woman turn 1 is just, it's busted. So yeah, Steve Trevor, really, really good card. Then we have Lasso of Truth, which is a bronze action. Move an enemy recruit and exhaust it. So why is this good exactly? Well, if you didn't know, DC Dual Force has a grid-based sort of system. So you have 6 spots on your board. Your 2 leaders will occupy the bottom left and bottom right spots of your grid. But there are 2 rows. So any cards in your front row are going to protect the cards directly behind it. So if I have a card, let's say like Steve Trevor in front of my Wonder Woman, well, you're going to have to damage and knock out Steve Trevor before you can attack my Wonder Woman. So Lasso of Truth is really good for moving your enemy's cards, so you can try and get past those recruits to try and damage the leaders. And exhaust basically means that next turn that enemy recruit cannot attack. Next up, we have Superman Robot, which is just a good early game unit. It's a bronze card with a 2/2 stat line that has shield and guard. And let's go over the keywords here real quick. So shield, the next time this character would be damage prevented. And then guard reads your front row characters. With guard, protect all other friendly characters. So if you have one card with guard on the board, like Superman Robot, basically your opponent is forced to attack and destroy this card before it can attack any of your other cards. Next up, we got Antiope, which is just a good early game unit. It has aura and a 3/3 stat line. Next, we have Clark Kent, which reads start, meaning at the start of your next turn. Transform Clark Kent into Superman and exhaust him. And there is a difference between the recruit Superman and the leader Superman. So every leader has a recruit version of themselves. So for example, we have Wonder Woman as our leader. There's also a Wonder Woman recruit version. There's also a Batman recruit version, etc., etc. So what is Superman? Well, he's actually our next card. We actually have a Superman in our deck as well. And this is the recruit version once again. He has shield. He's an 8/8, and while Superman is in your front row, your leaders are invincible. Basically invincible meaning they can't take any damage at all. So just a very, very strong card. Now it comes with a bit of a cost, right? He's a 1/1, so he's very easily killed. But if he survives into the next round, he will transform into Superman. And yeah, this is one of the main reasons why I say early game removal is very, very important. So if your opponent has a Clark Kent, you can take him down with something like a Batarang or something like Harvey Bullock. So Clark Kent is a very, very polarizing card. And then we have just some more units here. We have a Minotaur, which is a bronze 3/4. And then we have Superboy, which is a 4/4 with a shield. So that is the first deck list. This is just sort of a good cards, mid-range, Batman, Wonder Woman type of deck list. And yeah, I think this sort of deck is the best deck in the game right now. Maybe Aquaman, Mono Red might be better. We'll talk about that in a second here. But yeah, this is the first deck, and let's get into the next one. Next up, we have a Might and Energy deck, Energy being the green faction here. And we have Superman and Hal Jordan as our leaders. So Superman reads for 3 leader charges. Superman gets +7 attack and invincible this turn. And it's worth noting he has 22 health, which is a pretty high amount. I think it might actually be the most out of all the leaders in the game, if I'm not mistaken. But just an overall good card. Again, you're going to be seeing a lot of Might cards here because I think Might is just really good. Then we have Hal Jordan. At the start of your first turn, create a Green Lantern in your hand. This means he's going to create a random Green Lantern card. As you see in our deck, we have a bunch of Green Lantern cards here. I'll talk about them in a second. And then for 3 leader charges, Hal Jordan gets +3 attack this turn, and he generates a bronze resource. So this deck is really revolving around the Green Lanterns. A lot of the Green Lanterns abilities, they read pay a bronze resource to do X ability. So that's why it synergizes well with Hal Jordan. And I put in the Might faction just to buff up our Green Lanterns. So let's take a look here. Let's start off with the Energy faction this time. So let's go with Kyle Rayner here. And you can see he has the Green Lantern text. He's a 3/3 deploy. You may pay a bronze resource to summon a construct kaiju. Sacrifice it if Kyle Rayner leaves the battlefield. Now, what is the construct kaiju? Well, it is a unit that reads if you don't have Kyle Rayner, sacrifice construct kaiju, and deploy construct kaiju gets double the attack and defense of Kyle Rayner. So if he's a 3/3, then basically he's going to come out as a 6/6. But the thing is, you can just take down Kyle Rayner, and it'll also knock out the kaiju. But just a good Green Lantern card. Next up, we have Simon Baz. Deploy. You may pay bronze resource to give Simon Baz and a random Green Lantern in your hand, +3 defense. And he's a 3/2 stat line. Then we have the Ring Chooses, which is a bronze action card. Seek a Green Lantern and give them +2/+2. Again, seek means it's going to create a random card for you. This is not a card that starts in your deck. John Stewart, a silver Green Lantern. Deploy, you may pay bronze to deal damage equal to John Stewart's attack to an enemy character. So basically, if he has 3 attack, which is his base stat line, he will deal 3 damage to an enemy character. Chip, a bronze Green Lantern. Deploy, you may pay bronze to give Chip and a random Green Lantern in your hand, +1/+1, and aura. And again, you can see a lot of these Green Lantern cards say you may pay a bronze resource to activate X ability. You have Cosmic Treadmill, which is a gold action card. Give recruits in your hand and deck Flurry and draw a card. Now, what does Flurry mean? Basically means you can attack twice in the same turn. So a really good aggressive tool here. Then we have the recruit version of Hal Jordan. Deploy, you may pay bronze to double the attack and defense of Hal Jordan and a random Green Lantern in your hand. Starts off as a 5/5. If you activate his ability, he can be a 10/10, which is absolutely huge. And we have Stargirl, which is another way of generating bronze resources here. She's a 3/3 that reads start, meaning at the start of each turn, generate a bronze resource. Jessica Cruz, deploy, you may pay bronze to give Jessica Cruz and a random Green Lantern in your hand, +3 attack. Chasleon, is it Chasleon? Chaselon? I think it's Chaselon, right? Chaselon, the first time you play another Green Lantern each turn, generate a bronze resource. So another good engine at generating bronze resources. And then we have Kilowog, which is a silver Green Lantern with a 4/6 stat line. Deploy, you may pay a bronze resource to give your Green Lantern recruits everywhere, +1/+1. So again, everywhere means in your hand, in your deck, and every Green Lantern that you will create from abilities or action cards. So Kilowog is probably one of the best Green Lanterns in the deck here. And yeah, I really like this deck. I don't think this is as strong as the previous deck. If you're a Green Lantern fan, or maybe you just like the energy faction, try this deck out. It's a lot of fun. And let's take a look at the Might faction. A lot of these cards we already went through in the previous deck, so I won't go over those, but I will go over the cards that we haven't seen yet. First off, we have Super Size, which is a gold action card. It says double friendly recruits attack and health and draw a card. So again, just kind of buffing up your cards and drawing you a card. Drawing cards is important in this game. You want to be drawing cards or generating cards because you can run out of cards quickly in this game. Then we have Lobo, which is a silver unit with a 6/6 stat line. Deploy, secretly put a bounty on a random enemy character. After Lobo frags that Bastich, yeah, that's literally what the card says. After Lobo frags that Bastich, draw 2 cards and they become free. So Lobo's a really good card because he has a good stat line, and after you destroy whatever character was hit with a bounty, you draw 2 cards, not just 1 but 2, and they become free. So his ability is really good if you can pull it off. The only thing is it puts a bounty on a random enemy character, so it could be, you know, an easy character to kill with 1 health, or it could be something totally you know, hard to kill with like 10 health or something like that. But yeah, if you pull his ability off, a very strong card. Then we have Favor of the Gods, which reads draw a card and then give a random recruit in your hand +2/+2 and guard. Again, just trying to draw more cards and buff up our units. We have Hammer Throw, talked about that already. Truth and Justice is another good gold card. Give your characters +2/+2. And this is just your characters on the board, not in your hand or deck, just on the board. So if you have a lot of units on the board, this will be a good card to play. Steve Trevor again, just absolutely broken card. And then we have Lois Lane, since we're running Superman. Lois Lane is a 1/1 that reads, the first time you deploy a recruit with shield each turn, draw a card and charge your Superman leader. So since she has a 1/1, she is easily destroyed. But if she can stick on the board, she will get a lot of value for you. Then we have Superman Robot, again, just a good early game unit. Also synergizes with Lois Lane. We have Jimmy Olsen, which is a free unit, actually. He's a 0/2, but he has a shield, so good to go with Lois Lane. Could potentially buff him up. You could use him to protect some of your other cards. Superboy, just a good unit with a shield. And Crypto, we got Crypto the Super Dog in here, which is a 1/1. He has a shield, and he reads deploy, give another friendly character a shield. So that is this deck list. Again, just kind of revolving around playing Green Lanterns, generating those bronze resources, and buffing up all your characters on the board with cards from the Might faction. So yeah, if you like Green Lanterns or if you like Superman, try this deck out. I think it's a lot of fun. All right, next up, we're taking a look at a Joker Harley Quinn Arkham Inmates deck. And Joker and Harley Quinn are both in the Anarchy faction, which is the orange faction. So this is a mono Anarchy deck, meaning all 40 cards in this deck are Anarchy. And Arkham Inmates are kind of like how the Green Lanterns are a specific type of card. Well, Arkham Inmates are also a specific type of card in this deck list. And this is I would say this is a more aggressive deck compared to the previous two. We have the Joker, which reads for 3 leader charges. The Joker gets +2 attack this turn and fires 4 shots that deal 1 damage at random enemies. If you have an Arkham Inmate, charge the Joker. So basically, he is dealing 4 instances of 1 damage randomly across the board. It can hit enemy recruits or enemy leaders. Plus, if you have an Arkham Inmate, charge the Joker. And there are cards that synergize with the Joker because there is another keyword in this game called firepower. And firepower means your cards and abilities deal additional non-combat damage equal to your total firepower. So, for example, if we have +1 firepower, Joker's shots are going to be dealing 2 damage instead of 1 for a total of 8 damage, which, yeah, like I said, it's a very aggressive deck, can get out of hand quickly. Then we have Harley Quinn, which reads end, meaning at the end of your turn. Adrenaline, which means if your hand is empty, draw a card. So basically, if your hand is empty at the end of your turn, you are going to draw a card. And for 2 leader charges, Harley Quinn gets +3 attack this turn. So just a really aggressive duo that synergizes well with Arkham Inmates. A lot of cheap units on the board, as well as dealing damage directly to the opponent's leaders. So let's go through these cards here, and they're the same on both sides here. So we'll just take a look at one of these sides here. We'll look here. We have the Man Bat, which is an Arkham Inmate. He's a bronze card, speed, meaning he can attack the same turn he's played. Start, return Man Bat to your hand, and he's 3/2. So basically, what this ability means is if he doesn't die in the turn he's played, he will just keep coming back to your hand, and you can keep on attacking with him. Now, he probably will get destroyed if your opponent is running something like Batarangs in their deck list. He can be removed fairly easily since 2 health is a pretty low amount, but that Arkham Inmate tag is pretty valuable, and speed is just a good keyword to have as well, especially for aggressive decks. Then we have shoot randomly. This is kind of one of like the bread and butter cards of the deck that you're going to be playing a lot here. So shoot randomly is a bronze action that reads fire 3 shots that deal 1 damage to random enemies. This is basically similar to the Joker's leader ability. Next up, we have Bazooka, which is a gold card. Deal 8 damage to an enemy leader. So just straight up 8 damage to an enemy leader. Maybe you got them on the ropes. You know, they're really low on health, but your recruits cannot hit their leaders. They're being protected by something. You just play Bazooka and win the game. It's just a really good finisher card here. Next up, we have Amygdala, which is a 3/4 Arkham Inmate, and it attacks randomly, meaning when you attack with it, it's just going to attack randomly. You cannot control what it attacks, which is kind of the downside to its high stat line and ability. Adrenaline, Amygdala has +3 attack on your turn. So yeah, he can be a 6/4 on your turn, but the downside is he attacks randomly. Still a really good stat line, plus he's an Arkham Inmate. We have Kite Man, which is a free card, Arkham Inmate. Hunter, and Hunter is another keyword that basically means it can attack a leader even if it is protected. And he has text that reads Kite Man can only attack leaders. So he can only attack leaders, but he's a 3/1 with Hunter and Arkham Inmate. Then we have the Joker, which is the recruit version here. Of course, he's an Arkham Inmate. After a friendly Arkham Inmate is KO'd, deal 4 damage to a random enemy character plus a 6/4 stat line. So if you have a lot of small units on the board, a lot of small Arkham Inmates in there getting knocked out, Joker is going to be putting in work here. We got Deadshot, which is a 4/4 Arkham inmate. Hunter, and again, firepower +1. So, like I was saying earlier, firepower basically means your non-combat damage is going to do plus X amount, in this case, +1. So, if we go back to like shoot randomly, which says fire 3 shots that deal 1 damage to random enemies, that's a total of 3 damage. But if we take into account the firepower, so firepower +1, shoot randomly essentially reads fire 3 shots that deal 2 damage to random enemies for a total of 6 damage. So firepower is really good in this deck list. Then we have Victor Zsasz, which is just a 4/2 Arkham inmate, just a good unit for the board. Copperhead, Arkham inmate 7/4, Adrenaline Hunter. So basically, when your hand is empty, he can attack the leader even if it's being protected. Jailbreak says summon 2 Bronze Arkham inmates from the top half of your deck. Summon meaning it'll just put them on the board randomly in random spaces. Clayface is one of the best cards that you can play early on. He's an Arkham inmate with a 1/2 stat line that says after you deploy another Arkham inmate, Clayface gets +2/+1. This card is something you want to get rid of early if you're on the other end of this. This is one of those cards that you need to take out with like a battering or something like that. So for example, turn 1, you can play Clayface. He's a 1/2. But you can also play Kite Man. Since Kite Man is free and he's an Arkham inmate, you will have a 3/3 body on the board, as well as a 3/1 body on turn 1. So Clayface is insanely strong here. Then we have the recruit version of Harley Quinn, 3/6 after you play an Anarchy card, which all of the cards in our deck are Anarchy cards. Harley gets +2 attack this turn, and Adrenaline Flurry. And Ventriloquist is another card you want to get down early. He's an Arkham inmate, 1/1. After you deploy another Arkham inmate, create and play shoot randomly. So again, this synergizes with those firepower cards and the Arkham inmate. So you put Ventriloquist on the board, you summon an Arkham inmate, and he's just going to create shoot randomly, just doing pings across all of the enemies' characters, which is really valuable. Next up, we have the Reverse Flash, which is a 5/4. He has Flurry and Speed, but Reverse Flash can only attack leaders. Next up, we have Atrocitus, which is a 1/7. After any character is dealt damage, Atrocitus gets +1 attack, so it could be your characters or your opponent's characters, and we have a lot of ping damage with the shoot randomly, so Atrocitus can grow very large if your opponent cannot get rid of him. Mr. Freeze is just a good Arkham inmate, 2/2, deploy, exhaust an enemy leader, and deal 3 damage to them. Exhaust meaning they cannot attack or activate their leader abilities the following turn. Partners in Crime. So Partners in Crime reads Summon Punch and Julie. Well, who are these characters? What does that mean exactly? Basically, they are 2 Arkham inmates that have a 3/1 stat line. And this card is insanely strong because this will actually trigger things like Clayface. It'll trigger your Ventriloquist. So just a really good card for this deck. And then we have Punchline. Now, Punchline, this is actually the outdated version of the card. It's a little bit different. I will put the new version on here, either an image or the text. But basically, the updated version of Punchline is she has a 3/1 stat line. She reads lethal, which means if you do any combat damage to a character, it'll automatically KO that character. And it says if you have the Joker leader, firepower +1. So this is a really good card to synergize with the Joker and shoot randomly and all that. Then we have Two-Face, which is just probably one of the most fun cards to play with. Could also be one of the most frustrating cards to play against. He's a 2/2 Arkham inmate. Deploy, choose an enemy recruit. Flip a coin to decide, KO them, or draw a card. So this is just a really good card. Like, obviously, KOing enemy recruit, it could be like any enemy recruit is a very strong ability, but even then, there's really no downside because if you don't KO them, you draw a card, which is still really good. Plus, he's an Arkham inmate, so very valuable card. We have Black Manta, which is a silver recruit with a 5/3 stat line, and it says deploy, deal 5 damage to an enemy leader. Again, more of that damage, just dealing direct damage to the enemy leaders. Disorganized Crime. Each friendly Arkham inmate makes a bonus attack at random, and Adrenaline give them +2 before they attack, so more Arkham inmate synergy. And then last but not least, we have Devil's Knight, which is just a bronze action card that reads, give your recruits +2 attack this turn. And of course, this is a deck that plays a lot of recruits. So this deck is very, very aggressive, very, very fun. Try it out. Tell me how you like it. Maybe make some substitutions if you want. And that is it for this deck. Let's move on to the final deck here. All right, and last but not least, we have an Aquaman, Wonder Woman, mono red, mono white, whatever you want to call it, deck list here. And Aquaman, it's kind of funny because I feel like Aquaman has been kind of memed on in the past for being one of like the weaker superheroes, but he's actually one of the best leaders in the game. I would say he's second or third, only behind Batman and maybe Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman and Aquaman are like kind of neck and neck and like in the second and third spot. Aquaman is very, very strong. So yeah, overall, we just have really, really good might cards here. I already talked about Wonder Woman, but let's read what Aquaman does. He says 3 leader charges. Aquaman gets +3 attack this turn. Summon a sea creature, then give friendly sea creatures everywhere +1/+1. Now, what is exactly a sea creature? Well, sea creatures are basically just different types of units that have the sea creature tag on them. There's whales and sharks and whatnot. I'll throw a few examples on the screen for you, but he's going to summon a random sea creature, and then he's going to give friendly sea creatures everywhere +1/+1. Again, this means in your hand, deck, and created sea creatures. Plus, he has 20 health on top of that, which is very, very good. So let's go over the cards here. Again, I'm not going to talk about the cards I already mentioned before, but I will mention some of the new cards we have in here. Starting off, we have Big Barda, which is a gold unit. Doesn't have any text, but it's just a big body, 6'10" stat line, so can be a good finisher late in the game. And I should probably mention real quick, this is probably the slowest deck out of the ones I've showed. I would say the Joker Harley Quinn is more aggressive. The Green Lantern Superman is a mid-range kind of deck. The Batman Wonder Woman deck is also kind of mid-range. This is more, I don't want to necessarily say like a control deck or like a ramp deck. Like, I'm not exactly sure what to label it as, but it is a more slower deck that is going to be buffing up your units over time, where you eventually want to grow your recruits to be very, very big to the point where you just overwhelm your opponent. So this is definitely a slower deck compared to the previous ones, but this is probably one of the strongest decks in the game. Then we have Supersize, which I talked about that a little bit earlier. Hurl into the Stratosphere, Lobo, Favor the Gods. I already talked about a bunch of these cards before. A new one here, we have Aquaman, which is the recruit version. He's a 3/9. Aquaman has +2 attack for each of your sea creatures, and summon a sea creature. So every turn, at the start of your turn, if this stays on the board, he's going to summon a sea creature. And yeah, those sea creatures are just going to be getting buffed by your leader, and the recruit Aquaman is going to get buffed for each sea creature you have on the board. So a really good card in this deck. We have Steve Trevor, already went over him. The next up, we have Metamorpho, which is a silver unit. After you play a recruit with 5 attack or more, Metamorpho gets +2/+2, and he's a 3/3. And we do have a few recruits in here that have 5 or more attack. If we go back to Big Barda, she has 6 attack. Lobo has 6 attack. And then let's move on to the other cards here. We have Amazonian Bracers, which just reads, give a friendly character aura +4 health. Then we have Throne of Atlantis, creates 2 sea creatures in your hand. We have Mara, which is a 3/7, and it says the first time you deploy a recruit with 5 attack or more each turn, summon a tidal wave. And what is the tidal wave? The tidal wave is a 5/1 unit that reads speed, and at the end of your turn, sacrifice tidal wave. So basically, you just want to attack with tidal wave the same turn that it is summoned, or else it's just going to sacrifice itself anyways. Then we have Courage. Your recruits with 5 attack or more are invincible this turn. So again, got a lot of cards in here that synergize with cards that want to have 5 or more attack, which is just really all this deck is about, is just playing big units and buffing them up even more. Then we have the Wonder Woman Recruit version, which is a 6/6 aura, deploy, give adjacent might characters +2/+2, which every character in this deck list is a might character, so she's going to get full value. Superman robot, Antiope, Clark Kent, more just good units. Superman, Blue Devil, which is a bronze unit, says 3/1, start, generate a silver resource, and lose this ability. So this ability will only activate once since it says start, generate silver, and lose this ability. But he's still generating a free silver resource is still very, very valuable. The kind of trade off to that is that he only has 1 health, so he can be easily killed. Then we have Jimmy Olsen, again, just a good kind of blocker for us. And then we have Warlord, which is just a 5/1 unit, so easily destroyed, but we have more synergy there with units that have 5 or more attack. And that is it for the decks. There wasn't too much to talk about for this one since I kind of already talked about most of the might cards before. And I would say this deck is pretty straightforward, to be honest. Like, all you want to do is just be playing recruits and just buffing them up. That's really all you want to do with this deck. And it works. It's effective, right? So that is it for the deck list. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, these decks are not 100% optimized by any means. If you want to make some substitutions to these deck lists, go ahead. Or some of these cards you might not have. They gave us streamers a ton of packs to open, which means we got a lot of cards. I don't have all the cards in the game, but I have most of them, almost all of them. So some of these cards, if you don't have them, either you can try and just rip packs to try and unlock the cards, or just replace them with something else. It's just a beta. It's not the end of the world. There's no rank involved or anything like that. So if you don't have one of these cards, just replace it with something else. There are a ton of cards in this game, and who knows, you might even find something better than I did in these deck lists. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video, and the beta will be happening this weekend from Friday to Sunday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know if I'm going to be streaming Friday. I probably won't, to be honest, since I'll be busy working. Saturday, I might stream Saturday. If I can, I'll let you guys know on Discord and Twitter, YouTube. I'll let you guys know everywhere if I'm streaming. And Sunday is probably a no-go for me since I'll be celebrating Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Hope you have a nice Sunday. Spend some time with your family. Play some DC Dual Force. And thank you guys for watching once again so much. Appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.